It's time for the Onyx News. Extraterrestrials, time anomalies, dimensions, remote viewing, UFOs, UAPs, and USOs, ghostly encounters, abductions, Bigfoot, and more. Your end of the week news source for everything unexplained. Here is your host for the Onyx News Podcast, Margie K.
Hello and welcome to Onyx News. And I'm Margie K. I'm your host tonight and every night. Every Friday we are here, most of the time live. And tonight we have a very special guest going to be talking with Jim Gray. And Jim is the director of the Geneseo City Museum in Kansas, in a little tiny city there. And oh my gosh, there's a lot going on, and you need to know what's going on there. So if you're into UFOs, stay tuned for the rest of the program. Welcome to the program, Jim.
Well, thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you could join me this evening. It's been quite a while since you've been a guest on the show.
Yeah.
First of all, let's tell everybody where, is it Geneseo or Geneseo?
I just ran across somebody from New York that called it Geneseo. There's we call it Geneseo. There's a Geneseo, New York, which is the original where it came from. So, but we call it Geneseo. Yeah.
Okay. So you're in the middle of Kansas, in the middle of nowhere, basically.
Yeah, we're right in the very middle of the state. So.
Okay. And how many people live in that town?
I think the last census showed 231 people. So.
Okay. So most people would think of that area more like this, correct?
Yeah. We like to think of that too. So.
And you are a real cowboy.
Yeah, I was raised in the cattle business and kind of have several generations of that. So, yeah.
All right. And then, of course, here is the big railroad stop there.
Yeah. I had an aunt and uncle that actually were railroad agents at that, not that depot, but the original depot. So I kind of grew up around the railroad business too. And
really,
still can kind of think about it, and I can smell that old wood yet today. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, tell us about the museum and how it got started and the history of it.
Well, Dr. Elmer Jansen was one of these eclectic characters. He had like 8 different degrees, classic genius, never married, and he was very, very interested in Geneseo and its families, and he started collecting photographs from people's family albums, turned them into slides, and he was raised on a farm north of town, and then his parents moved in to Geneseo in 1951, and at some point he moved in with them. He was a minister. He had graduated from the Moody Bible Institute in Chicago. He was a ventriloquist. He used the ventriloquist dolls as part of his ministry. He was a chiropractor, a doctor of naprapathy, which is along the lines of chiropractic, but it's a little more manipulation of muscles. And he could read Braille, taught Braille. He was an auctioneer. he
Sounds like a genius.
He just did a lot of different things, but of course, all of those things were really important to him. But along the way, he picked up an interest in the whole UFO thing that was going on there in the late 1940s and early 1950s. We're not real sure exactly when his interest really kicked in. We have one book that he has dated as 1953 when he first started having an interest in the UFOs, at least in reading this particular book. So
did he travel around to all of the UFO conferences at the time?
Well, so for a number of years, I think it's kind of like a freight train picking up steam, and he was probably putting out the feelers and trying to find contacts, and I'm sure I know he communicated with some of the authors in those days. Somewhere along the line, he and a fellow out of Nickerson, Kansas, which is just south east of us a little ways, connected, and that fellow's name is John W. Dean, was a mechanical arts teacher, and he was somewhat of a genius himself. He wrote a couple of books, and these books are so detailed. It twists your mind all up in knots trying to read his works. But he also did a lot of artwork, and that's what we have in the museum that really kicked off the outside knowledge or recognition that Doc Jansen was actually involved in all this. Was he began to display all of these drawings of flying saucers and different kinds of spacecraft and other kinds of information about outer space that John Dean put together into a slide program. When I was a kid, about I think I was maybe about 11 or 12 years old, they had a PTA program, parent teachers program at the school, and it was supposed to be about outer space. And here was John Dean, and he put on this long program about flying saucers and men from Venus and that sort of thing. And that's also when I think most of us were introduced to a fellow out of Missouri by the name of Buck Nelson. Buck was not here, but John was talking about Buck's travels in his program. So
yeah.
So that the thing about it is that so Doc, his parents passed away by 1964. He turned the house into a museum, and one of the things he did was really feature John Dean's collection. Well, that tended to kind of be an embarrassment to a lot of the community, and so it was kind of like Geneseo's secret that no one ever talked about, especially after Doc, in failing health, willed the museum to the city. That's why it's the Geneseo City Museum, in 1976, and he passed away then, just not more than a year later, in 1977. So again, it's got the museum has all this wonderful stuff from the community, and Doc's ventriloquist dolls, and an absolutely phenomenal collection. He loved dogs, and he has a collection of dog figurines, and everybody really proud of all that, but they certainly didn't want to talk about the UFO collection. And so,
but now people seem to be more open to that.
Well, and what happened was, small town Geneseo, and the museum was kind of falling into neglect, and a few of us got involved and got the city reorganized the board in 2018, and I was president at that time, right from the beginning, and I had always really appreciated that collection and started bringing it out and making it publicly known what we had. So we've moved forward from in the last 5 years, trying to let people know what we got, because it's really, really, really unique collection.
Well, UFOs have become mainstream now, especially since, with all the publicity, the military coming out with video of UFOs that they cannot identify, and they're admitting that. And of course, with Congress, the congressional hearings. So it's a little bit more accepted. Well, a lot more accepted now. It's okay to talk about it. And so yeah, you've got a lot going on there. But I want to go back. Let's, if we could talk about Buck Nelson a little bit. Of course, Doc Jansen went to see Buck Nelson several times. And what is his story?
Well, I recently came across some information. I wasn't sure when Doc Jansen might have made his connection with Buck Nelson, but he did take some photographs of the Buck Nelson started putting on spacecraft conventions, and so he attended one in 1959. So that's when he first is really interacting. He and John Dean both. Well, so Buck really drew the attention of the country by coming forward with a story of how he had been visited on his little farm, or he called it his ranch, Mountain View Ranch, north of Mountain View, Missouri. And these, as he would call them, space brothers, visited him in 1953. And eventually, after visiting several times, one of the reasons they would stop at his place was he claimed they really liked his spring water, and they would collect his spring water to take with them on their space adventures, I suppose. But we actually have a little bottle of the spring water that Dr. Jansen collected that is just as clear as a bell. There's no sediment at all in that water. It's amazing. But anyway,
that would explain why the ETs wanted that.
They loved it. It was pure stuff. And they eventually then offered to take him into space, and so he described his travels to the moon and Venus and Mars in a little booklet. And I don't know how well known he would have become, except there's a fellow that lived west of him about 70 miles, a little town of Seymour, Missouri, by the name of James Hill. I have not found very much on James Hill, but Hill had read a little newspaper item about Buck Nelson, and he then began communicating with him and getting him to go to flying saucer clubs around the Kansas City area, Springfield area, and which then they went all over the country, Chicago, Washington, D.C., actually, giving talks at these groups of people that were gathering to talk about flying saucers and aliens.
No doubt they met up with a lot of other people who were big names, like George Adamski,
right?
Howard Menger. So no doubt they knew those people as well. Yes,
they would have. Again, too, and we have a number of books that Dr. Jansen collected during the time period, and there are inscriptions sometimes in the books from various people that he had come across. So that's quite a community that's gathering. The first that I can find where there's actually a flying saucer convention was in 1953 in California. A fellow by the name of, let me see if I get this, Orfeo Angelucci. Have you ever heard of him?
I don't think so.
He wrote a book on flying saucers, and he describes all of these people, and he's describing Adamski and a number of these big names at that time are all gathered at what they called the Hollywood Hotel in 1953. And as far as I know, that's the very first time that there was a gathering like that. And there was supposedly this mysterious Mr. X, because no one seemed to know his name, that came in and described spacecraft in quite some detail, and somehow slipped away from them, and no one ever knew who he was.
Yeah, it's even more mysterious.
Yes, very interesting story. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So Buck Nelson had contacts with. There was another fellow that almost looked like a young Buck Nelson. I should describe Buck Nelson. He was kind of a slight built character and wore bib overalls and just a typical everyday rural person. Oh, here you have a picture of him. And so he was nothing really mysterious about him. He just looked like an everyday character, but he sure had some stories to tell.
Yes, and one of them was about his the space dog.
Yes. Well, and the dogs. See, his dog. Darn, I'm going to forget the name. Was actually, I guess you could call a space traveler too, because when they took him into space, they took his dog along with them. But the dogs that really drew attention, this again is from this James Hill. He claimed that they had stopped at his place and given him a puppy that was a dog from Venus, a puppy from Venus, and he raised it. That was Queenie. And they used to, then we actually have in the museum a little tuft of white hair that's supposedly from this dog from Venus. When the Space Brothers first were landing at Buck Nelson's ranch, they approached the place. There were three of them approached the place one night with a big dog, and this dog weighed like 380 some pounds.
Yeah, that's a big dog.
And Big Bo. Well, John Dean has a photograph of Big Bo supposedly taken at one of the conventions that he took the picture. So I mean, that is a huge dog, and I don't know what became of Big Bo, but
maybe he went back home.
Maybe he did.
Yeah. Well, Buck Nelson's book is very interesting. It's a small book. It doesn't have a whole lot of detail. I mean, one comes away from it with wanting a lot more detail, but I could see he was not a professional writer, but at least he got that information out, and it's very interesting. And you can still get it online. I think it's called To the Mars, Moon, and Venus, Buck Nelson, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a copy of it. But the museum has a very unusual history. Besides what we've already talked about, what did you discover there? I think it was 2001, was it? When you were getting ready, or 2022?
Yeah, it was when we were okay. So we'd actually had a friend that's a newspaper journalist had done a story. She knew about the collection and had done a story on the John Dean collection of spacecraft and the whole UFO stuff that was going on with Doc Jansen, and it garnered quite a bit of attention, which is what I was kind of looking for in the first place. But that was when it was, gosh, March, and World UFO Day was coming up on July 2nd of 22. And I suggested to the board, why don't we put out that we're going to do World UFO Day? And we did that. Well, that was on a Tuesday night. It was just about Thursday morning that I raised cattle. I was going out to do chores in the morning, and I swung by the museum on the way out of town, and the secretary's car was there, and well, I'll stop and say hi and see what she's doing. And when I went in, she says, "Hey, have you seen that strange, symbol out in the curb?" I said, "No, I didn't know what she was talking about." And she had to take me out and show me. And here, etched in the concrete, which had to have been put in when that concrete was wet, which was probably in the 1940s, was this strange symbol. Yeah, that's pretty strange. I didn't know what to make of it, and I was in a hurry, go feed cattle. I came back in, and afterwards, and studying it, and took some photographs, asked some people what they thought of it, and they thought, well, it looks like a compass. Got to doing a little more research. Back in so once I oriented myself looking at the compass with the symbol, pointing north, well, then you see there's a vector pointing to the southwest. And yeah, when you look at that, I thought it was just a pointer. It's more than a pointer. It's an actual flying saucer. Mm-hmm. And that thing was put there in the concrete, actually, before Dr. Jansen was living there. And it's pointing directly towards the back of the house. And I had been, I don't know, it just popped, you know how these things just kind of roll. It popped into my head, well, I wonder how far it is to Roswell. I'd been to Roswell in 2018. And doggone if it wasn't just as straight as an arrow, exactly 500 miles from Geneseo, Kansas to Roswell, New Mexico.
Yeah. That is bizarre.
Talk about unexplained.
It's very unexplained. I think this is the only such case I've ever heard of like this.
Well, when you connect that little flying saucer, what in the world? That little flying saucer on that vector with the 500 miles to Roswell, it's just kind of, we don't understand it. But we started calling it the Roswell compass.
Yeah.
And if anyone can explain it to us, we'd sure be happy to listen.
Well, I think we talked about this before. What it reminded me of when I first saw it was those metal, round metal plates that are put into the ground by the government at certain locations. They found one at Blind Frog Ranch.
Oh.
And they're puzzled. They don't know what it's doing there, but it was obviously put there by the government. And I'm just wondering if this wasn't one of those early, before they started putting the metal ones in the ground in concrete, if this wasn't, something that was put there as a marker.
And in talking to, city people and anyone in town, no one's ever seen anything like this anywhere in the in town. And I guess I didn't really explain. The reason why we were only just now seeing it was that the secretary that I was talking to, Janet Splitter, she was cleaning the, how silt just kind of fills in the gutters, and she was cleaning the gutter out, and there it was. And she'd cleaned it before. For some reason, it hadn't shown itself. I don't know, but it took cleaning the gutter to find this. Only 2 days after we had decided we were going to do World UFO Day, which is also kind of odd, really.
Yeah, that's very coincidental.
Yeah.
And then there's this next to it.
Now these letters are just to the west of it, and they look like just looking at them from that angle, they look like they're just strange symbols. They could be letters, but they're one could be a J, the other one, don't know, could be a C. It's not really a G, but
yeah.
We don't know. We do have, John Dean did study languages from other planets, and he's got some alphabets. I went and tried to compare them to his alphabets, and none of them showed those symbols. So there's something beyond that. So.
Oh, that is a mystery to be solved for sure. Well, we are up on a break, and when we come back, we will speak more with Jim Gray about the very strange city of Geneseo, Kansas. We'll be back right after this. Are you thinking about purchasing a wood-fired heating or cooking appliance but don't know where to start? The new book, Wood-Fired Heating and Cooking, will guide you through the process and make the decision much easier. Find out about wood stoves, wood-burning fireplace inserts, masonry heaters, cook stoves, brick ovens, and more. Learn about operation and maintenance, buying and storing wood, even how to make your own charcoal. A bonus section includes delicious recipes for cooking in a wood-burning oven, grill, tandoori oven, or smoker. The wise homeowner, prepper, or homesteader will have the ability to heat their home with wood when the power goes out or to save money on increasing gas bills. Wood-fired heating and cooking is available at Amazon. Visit www.woodfiredpub.com for more information. That's woodfiredpub.com. Welcome back. I'm Margie Kay. This is UNX News, and we're here at the UNX Network every Friday at 6 p.m. And this coming up week, actually the 16th of the month, we're going to do a special broadcast. Kay and Hobbs are going to do a special broadcast about 2024 predictions, and we'll have some very special guests on. So be sure to tune into that, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We are here tonight with Jim Gray. He is the director of the Geneseo City Museum in Geneseo, Kansas. And what a strange and bizarre place that is. How I mean, how do you do it, Jim? It's kind of odd.
I don't know. Geneseo is kind of a special place, I think. There's something about being in the middle of anything that kind of gives you the ability to have a perspective to look in all directions, and I think that's part of what goes on out here and out on the prairie in the middle of Kansas is wide open spaces give us a chance to look around and to listen. And listening is maybe one of the more important things, I think. And sometimes things just happen to come to you. And it seems like that's what it's did for Doc Jansen. That's kind of what it's doing at the moment for the Geneseo City Museum. The UFO Day first one turned into a pretty nice little success. You were there. Whoops, you were there, and we had a great little time, and it only got better the second year. Now, World UFO Day falls always on July 2nd, and so we didn't want to run through the week, so we changed it to Kansas UFO Day, and we have it on a Saturday, first part of July, and this year we're going to have it on July 6th. But oh gosh, last year I think the first year I wasn't quite as tuned in to everyone. I was all worried about making everything work, and the second year I was a little more relaxed, and gosh, the smiles on people's faces were just worth $1 million. It was just quite the experience.
So tell us a little bit about what goes on for that special day.
Well, let's see, folks. A few folks will decorate their yards with UFO things, flying saucers and little aliens and that sort of thing. And we have a nice set of grounds that are next to the museum open grounds where we have vendors come in. We didn't have the vendors the first year, but the second year we brought in the vendors, and that really added to the weekend. We've got a little outdoor tent, which I liken to when Buck Nelson started having his spacecraft conventions. It was all outdoors, and people came in their campers, and it was just a nice little gathering of people. Well, so we have a tent with a little stage, and that's where the presentations are made from, and a nice big shade tree out in front of it. And, you
have a parade too, don't you? What about the parade?
Then we have a parade. We had a fellow bring in a homemade flying saucer that he'd made out, that's on, motorized, that he could drive it down the street. And people dress up in various types of outfits and little tin hats and lots of things.
It's a lot of fun.
Fun, and one of the things that really was a big hit this past year was a kind of a backdrop that actually we didn't really plan on it, and one of the people involved with our committee just came up with it and says, "Hey, put this up on the side of the house." And it was it's a big flying saucer with a beam shooting down, and everyone had to have their picture taken in front of that flying saucer. There you go. And that thing, that's where I saw the smiles. Everyone was coming away from there with the biggest smiles on their faces and just having a good time, and that really made it worthwhile. There's fireworks in the evening, and then we have, there's a band playing downtown, but on the grounds we have a night movie, and we played The Day the Earth Stood Still that first year, and Earth versus the Flying Saucers this second year. So I actually am going to bring back The Day the Earth Stood Still, simply because of the other thing that we're going to do now is the Gort and Klaatu project. And
Yeah, let's get into that. What is going on with Gort and Klaatu?
I had my mind on that actually for a year or so ahead of time, but again, it was all those smiles, the reaction to that UFO backdrop that just sealed it for me, that I wanted to have a full-size Gort. Originally, I was just going to do the Gort by himself, but a full-size Gort on the grounds. And I had a couple of friends that I had known since, years ago. I ran an Old West cowboy shop, and they did little metal art for me that I sold off the shelf, and I knew they were good. B&B Metal Arts out of Hoisington, Kansas, Bruce and Brent Bitter, and I talked to them about, hey, could you guys build Gort for me? Oh man, they jumped right into that. They loved the idea, and I knew they could do it because they're artists deluxe. I didn't know until recently that after the 9/11 event, they were sent some I-beams from the World Trade Center, which they turned into artwork, and they put a stainless steel eagle up with this I-beam, and it's on display at the airport in Wichita, and I believe there are some other airports where they've done the same thing. Very very high quality stuff. So yeah, they could do Gort. So we actually kind of operating on faith that we could get it done. It turned out that the state of Kansas, through the Department of Commerce, the tourism division, was offering an attraction development grant that they would come up with 40% of your project, and we did get that grant, and that really pushed us forward to do this project. But the project turned into much more than just Gort. Well, you can't hardly have Gort without Klaatu, and so full-size Gort and Klaatu off to the side, as you would have seen him in the movie, 1951 movie, which was the year that Doc Jansen moved into town with his parents.
Another coincidence.
Another coincidence, yes. So Klaatu is going to be a more of a silhouette form in which his visor will be open, and you can stand behind Klaatu and be Klaatu for a photo op sort of thing. And they'll be standing on the grounds facing the Roswell compass.
I see. Okay, that'd be appropriate.
It all kind of ties together.
Yeah.
And
so will those be completed by the time you have your festival?
They should be completed. Yes, shouldn't be. They will be completed by then. And this thing is much bigger than I even imagined. As you get into the whole ideology of the day the Earth stood still, I guess you could call it that. Everyone that knows anything about that period of time, and that's what Doc Jansen is all about. That's what the museum collection is all about, is a special period of time from the 1950s into the 1970s in which everyone was looking to the skies and also very afraid of where our future was going with the atomic bomb. So all of these things are tying in together, and in the movie it's Nikto Barada Klaatu, and everyone has their different ideas of what those words meant. But basically, Gort was being told not to destroy the planet, not to destroy the human race.
Yeah.
In another way of saying it, it was save planet Earth. And so that is also something that is working into this whole agenda of Roswell Compass, Gort and Klaatu, and Nikto Barada Klaatu, save planet Earth. It's much larger than I ever imagined.
Yeah, it probably could be useful today too.
Yes,
especially right now.
That's where I'm going with it, I think. So.
We got a lot of fear about something really bad happening, and especially with nuclear. So, yeah, let's hope that doesn't happen. We might have to ask the ETs for help.
And that was part of what the contact was about, was that they were warning us that the not just the war from atomic weapons, but the testing that was going on was affecting the equilibrium of the entire solar system. And
yeah, that was the message that George Adamski received, what Buck Nelson received. Quite a few people relayed that same information.
Yeah, and just as it was important then, it's even more so today.
A lot of people who attended the conventions and spoke at these conventions in the 50s and 60s reported having visits from men in black or government agents.
Yes.
Even in the case of some of them, they were poisoned, actually. Yeah. Did Doc Jansen or anybody you know about ever experience any of that?
Don't know that he experienced it. Again, they were these folks were written off as not being sound in the mind, that sort of thing. But one of the things in one of the books in Doc's collection is a book by a fellow by the name of Gray Barker. The title is "They Knew Too Much About Flying Saucers." And Gray talks about various people who had contact, who went public with their contact, and then were visited by men in black, and suddenly they wouldn't talk anymore. So he very much covers that intimidation that was going on, and not knowing who these men in black really were. But
in doing research on Buck Nelson, I found a book by Gray Barker. Well, it was a set of newsletters. And so he put out a monthly newsletter, and these are all combined. It was called Saucerama, I believe.
Yes.
Gosh, there's some interesting stories in there from witnesses who experienced things, and children too, that experienced some crazy stuff.
Well, and some of those same people, Gray was pretty frustrated with, would suddenly just freeze up and not talk anymore. And again, it had to do with being visited by these men in black. So I haven't heard of any of that kind of activity in our modern times. I don't know if you have or not.
Oh yes, it's still going on.
It's still going on.
Yeah, even they're not quite as in your face as they used to be, but they're there. You know, when I do investigations, if it's a big case with a lot of evidence, we will be surveilled as investigators and also followed by vehicles. And some of them are even as blatant as to put in tiny 1-inch tall letters on the side of the vehicle, government vehicle. And they'll be sitting right outside my house or my office. Just some crazy stuff. And the thing is that and I think a lot of other investigators will agree with me, we don't know as much as the government does. Why are they surveilling us when we're working these cases?
Well, you bring something up that I find curious. The whole story of Valiant Thor, and that he actually had an office in the Pentagon, was it?
Yes.
One time. So I don't really understand if we had that connection, what became of Valiant Thor.
Well, yeah, you and me need to talk about that because I'm in contact with Thor.
Yeah. Okay.
I have been since 1985.
Oh.
And I don't want to take up our time on this show to talk about that, but
Okay.
I probably should make a special show about it. Yeah, he's still around, and he's contacted a lot of people.
He was someone.
There's 2 books coming out that I'm publishing that are going to come out this year. Yeah.
Well, he was someone that Dr. Jansen was very aware of, and all of the other contact. They were very aware of him. So that was part of those times. Anyway.
Yeah, and it seemed that people were more willing to be open and discuss that sort of thing. And then in the 70s, things got kind of squashed.
Yeah. And that's kind of about the time that all of these guys that I'm talking about were getting older, and they were bowing out and disappearing. And speaking of disappearing, Buck Nelson actually completely disappeared. No, there are stories that he went to California, but there's actually no one has ever found his gravesite. So
yeah, or an obituary.
John Dean claimed he visited him right before he went to California, and that Buck was really down because his health was failing him, and the Space Brothers had told him that they would take him back to Venus, and they hadn't done so, and so he was, he was down about that, and but there's no burial site. Maybe they did.
Maybe never know. Maybe they did.
We don't know. We don't know.
Yeah. Now, when people come to the UFO festival this year, what are they going to see?
Oh well, we're going to put a lot of emphasis on the Roswell Compass and Gorton Klaatu. I think it's going to be an impressive figure to see, and again the whole feeling of what it was like to live in those times in the 1950s right through the 1970s is something that we're trying to generate. So I think you come and you're going to really be surprised at not just the UFO collection, but the full collection that's in the museum itself. Well,
there's a lot. Do you have any idea how many pieces of UFO information you have?
Oh gosh, no. I guess I've never really, put it in a number. I would say there's several hundred different pieces. Not all of it's on display, but most of it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and actually, for researchers or investigators, it's a good place to visit as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, it gives you a running start on what it was like in those times, and again with John Dean's drawings, it really puts you up close to what was going on. Yeah. So, it all just seems to kind of be, who knows what's coming next for us. These things seem to be coming together in little, piece by piece. And maybe it's making a picture that we'll eventually understand. I don't know.
Now, your little town also has a special designation from the state. What is that?
Well, and we did that same spring that we were deciding to do World UFO Day, we went to the museum board, went to the city council and asked them to just make a declaration that Geneseo is the UFO capital of Kansas. There are various towns across the states that show themselves as various types of capitals. And so they did that. So we're recognized as the UFO capital of Kansas. And
is there any type of designation placed somewhere in the town, like as you're going into town or anything?
There's a little sign out on the highway that right now is just a temporary sign. We need to get something up a little more permanent. But yeah, we've got that. And again, I think it's you know, it's a one step at a time. Everything needs to grow with its own pace. This Gort and Klaatu, we're really operating on faith that we could accomplish this, and I'm really hoping that maybe the UFO community will help us to make that happen with some donations. We sure enough could.
So how can people donate?
We have a Facebook page that is the Geneseo City Museum, and you can go down through that thing and see all the photographs and good times that we've had, and kind of almost re-experience it all over again. The last couple of years of UFO activity in Geneseo. But there's a donate right at the top. There's a big donate sign, and there's a link with that to link to our website. We're building that at the moment, and it's not completely finished, but it's up enough that we have the donation page built into the website, and it'll link you to that. And oops, here we go.
And you went. Oh, there we go.
I wondered if I'd get a phone call.
We're being sabotaged. Oh,
anyway, you can link to our donation page through. Probably the easiest way is first just go to the Facebook page and then follow that link to the website.
Okay.
And
now, how can people get a T-shirt?
Oh, well, I don't know if we've got the website. That'll be on the website too eventually, where you can purchase the shirts, and that's got the little that one's got the Roswell compass up in the corner, and the black one's just you can see the Roswell compass on that.
That's pretty awesome. I like your lettering on there.
Yeah.
Dimension G.
Those are pretty popular T-shirts. So Dimension G, we didn't talk about that. That's just another step. There's some. But so when we first doing the World UFO Day in Dimension G, well, Geneseo, Kansas, and we're just another dimension away. I think another. Well, when I was a kid, that's what really started. Little town kids don't really think a whole lot of their town, and so we were G-hole. Oh, I'm from G-hole. Well, along the line we came up with the
okay,
G, which is
later that turned into Dimension G.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of history in the town, and the museum is great. Just not even including the UFO part, which is fabulous. And there aren't that many UFO museums in the United States. So it's really great that you brought the building back to life, and that you have this really great display, and now the UFO festival every year. And let's get this Roswell compass mystery solved, Jim.
Yeah, we sure would like to. There's really nothing like Dimension G. There's really nothing like it. It's an experience.
Indeed. Well, thank you so much for coming on the program, and good luck with your festival.
I appreciate it, and we'll be looking forward to your visit.
All right. I will see you in July.
Okey-doke.
Okay. Yeah, that was Jim Gray, and gosh, yeah, it's worth a visit. I was there when it started in 2022, and now it's getting bigger and bigger, and no wonder. I encourage all UFO investigators to go check out this Roswell compass and the strange symbols that are beside it, like this that can't be identified. So we need to look into that and see if we can't figure this out, folks. This is Margie K with the next news. I will see you next time, which will be in a week. And then also don't forget the on the 16th we're doing our special 2022 predictions with Kay and Hobbs. Good night, everybody.